Hi everyone, the subject of today's video is, can India become a superpower? Before we delve into this, let's begin with discussing the terminology and understanding the terminology. When we say superpower, what does it entail in its most pure essence? A superpower, according to me, my subjective opinion, is a country that has enough geopolitical might and economic significance, two factors, geopolitical might and economic significance, to affect the destinies, to affect the way other countries function through the projection of its own strength, these two instruments, geopolitical might and economic significance. I don't know if this definition is has maybe already in this certain way been proposed by someone else, but this is my view on what is a superpower. If you look at today's world map, you will basically see two countries that can be called superpowers, and these are United States of America and China. And what is the reason for that? Because they are the two strongest economies, and they do affect the destinies of other nations through the use of their economic instruments. They project those economic instruments, especially on the African continent. You can see the mechanisms at work, and you can see the dynamics of this. You can even say competition happening between US and China on the African continent. Apart from that, US and China, they do hold immense geopolitical might, and this geopolitical might is also a question in discussion amongst a lot of experts in the context of, once again, the ongoing geopolitical conflict between the two, which hasn't yet escalated into something big, but it is nonetheless happening. And alliances are nonetheless forming around these two superpowers, right? So superpowers, they also have the power to form alliances around them because they propagate certain ideas, economic ideas or political ideas, and nations, weaker nations that are attracted to one or the other policy being entertained by the leads of these superpowers, they attach themselves to that program and work together with those countries. Now, when we speak of India, India can be labeled at the moment as a regional superpower, because superpowers can be on a world scale and they can be on a regional scale. And India is for sure a regional superpower. And when we say regional, we are speaking of the region South Asia. South Asia includes countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. It more or less also some of the countries that fall into the Southeast Asia group, like Burma. They also are included, mostly Nepal. They're all included into the South Asia group, and India is for sure a regional superpower due to the economic might that it holds. As we all know, this has been old news already. India has overtaken its former colonialists as the fifth biggest economy in the world, and the projections are that somewhere between 2030, 2040, or maybe even by 2030, India might become the third most powerful economy in the world, which will entail a lot of things for the country. Now, moving forward, as the subject of today's video is, can India become a superpower? Let's speak of the progress that has been made already. Studying in an Indian embassy school in Moscow, Russia, it was an English medium school, and we read Indian history, we read the history of the forming of the political agenda in India and so on. India, for you to understand, got its independence just in 1947. So Indian Republic as a country hasn't even yet, you know, lived as a country even for 100 years. So in 2047, India will mark its 100th birthday, and I believe in 2047 the world and India, of course, will be a much different place than now. But the idea is that by the time India will reach that stage, it must become a superpower. This is what the projections are. This is what the political pundits are speaking of, because it will be, number one, a momentous date, and 100 years is basically almost a life cycle of 1.5 generations. Even you can say 2 generations in some sense. And it is enough time for a country to understand and comprehend what are its strong points and how to magnify those strong points, how to strengthen them. But as I said, there has been a lot of progress made since independence, especially, I believe, in many sectors. But what I see for myself, I recently visited India. In education, if you look at the structure of the Indian economy, the tertiary sector, the so-called services sector, is growing in volume, it's growing in significance every year. And although agriculture is still a significant portion of India's economy, and not just a portion of economy, but a lot of workforce is engaged in agricultural activities, there is this progress happening in the tertiary sector. And especially information technology has been growing in India. We have hubs like Bangalore in South Asia that are no less than the most high-tech hubs in countries like the States or in some European countries like Germany. These hubs are growing in significance and attracting a lot of foreign direct investment. A lot of startups are being born every day in Bangalore. I've even heard my friend from Bangalore tell me that almost literally every day there is a startup or many startups being registered in the city, because it's a startup hub of sorts and it provides a pretty good ecosystem to them. So this progress in the tertiary sector and service provision is one stark thing that you can just by even a very surface glance you can understand that. And this has been made possible through education, through educating the masses. Education is also India's current issue, because it hasn't been, not everyone has accessed it yet. Because when I speak to Indian people, a lot of work is going on obviously on this, but the idea is education isn't just A, B, C, D, E, F, G and the alphabet and some basic grammar of English language and knowing how to sign papers. Like, literacy rate in India is measured by knowing your language, and you need to read and write at least your regional language. That's the number one criteria for identifying as a literate person. Education in a broader sense is higher level skills, and educating people in understanding and developing those skills in oneself, and then using those skills to further the interests of a person's economic interests, which in turn lead to the furthering of a country's economic interests. So in education, a lot of progress has been made, but when we speak of high-skilled labor, this is the area where a lot is still to be done, according to my opinion, and a lot has been also done. It's not like it's not being done. There are experts, there are people who, and I read about them in the Indian news, international news. There are a lot of opinion leaders in India whose voice is heard all around the world. And India is actually heavily investing in the development of high-end skills in its population. Another progress this has been made, I believe, in India is urbanization. There's a lot of construction going on. If you look at 1947 India and you look at India right now, there's a lot of construction work going on, especially in the place where I live. It's a place called Greater Noida. It's basically southeastern region of Delhi, known as Delhi NCR. And I see when I go there, when I visited recently, as I said, I visited it, there's so much construction going on, and they're even planning to build like the tallest building in northern India called Supernova. And all of this obviously involves a lot of investment, and it involves, and because this is being done, office spaces are being constructed. This means that this is also, the reason behind it is also to improve the employment statistics. And for people to be employed in those offices, once again, what comes to the surface is high-skilled labor, because developing high-skilled labor is a very important thing for India. At the same time, I would like to highlight that agriculture is also one of the strengths of India. And to consider progress as the reduction of agricultural activity in the overall economy is not the rightest or the most best way to define economic progress, because agriculture in general is, I believe, India's strength that can utilize, once again, high-end technologies and highly skilled labor that could even produce more crops, lead to more crop production. There will be a surplus, and the surplus will be enjoyed overall by the population. So agriculture could gain a lot from its linkage with high-end and high-tech practices, and by employing high-end technology in its day-to-day activities. And India could, I believe, use this opportunity also. If you ask me about the reasons why India has made this much progress that it has made in like 70-something years, I believe the number one reason, according to me, is how well it has managed to balance between diversity and a unified governmental policy. If you look at India, India is not a country with, one nationality or one religion living inside those boundaries. I have read, when I was reading Shantaram, there was this interesting quote by a French guy in that book. He said, if a billion French people lived in France, they wouldn't handle each other that well, how Indians handle different Indian nationalities and different Indian cultures handle themselves. So India's biggest success, according to me, has been its ability to utilize efficiently the positive sides of its diversity, and at the same time harness it and use it for, basically use its positive sides for developing the country, because diversity also entails diversity in cultures, in languages. It can also be an advantage if properly used for uplifting the economy, and it provides you with diverse instruments to do these things. So this is, I believe, the number one achievement and the reason why all of this has been made possible in India. Now the next section comes, and it is the challenges that India is facing at the moment. Well, if we speak of geopolitical challenges, then there are many challenges. India's main rivalry in terms of presence on the Asian continent, and also a lot of businesses being done with that country, is of course China. But I also have a lot of friends in China, and we do, have business with China. Very hardworking people, very interesting culture in itself. They also have a lot of diversity, and India's turnover with China is not really, isn't really. If you look at the turnover between India and China, you wouldn't guess that there's an ongoing border conflict or anything of the sort. Although I believe the border conflict has been sort of like put under the mattress. But it is one of the hot points in Asia, and this rivalry, geopolitical rivalry between India and China, it is a point to mention here. And of course, looking at the government policy at the moment, we all know about the string of pearls and the necklace of diamonds to counter the string of pearls and so on. it is happening, and but all of this, once again, any geopolitical movement on the geopolitical chessboard involves financial resources and their proper use and implementation. So for India to be a geopolitical winner and to also indulge and engage in trade with its neighbors, it has to be economically strong. For that, there are various programs being realized. For example, Make in India, or the recent program announced, which was Atmanirbharta, which basically means sort of technological and manufacturing technological sovereignty. Yes, and if India could implement these policies in the correct way, I believe there is no stopping. And from a regional superpower, India could all of a sudden even become a potential economic competitor to other superpowers in the world. And as I said, if it becomes the third biggest economy after China and US, then the path to this reaching the helm of the seat of the superpower seat, so to speak, it becomes much more clear. And the only way to do that is, I believe, through developing its trade relations with its neighbors, with other countries, and developing its own manufacturing and its economy. This is what I believe is the key to India becoming a superpower. Apart from China, there's also the neighboring countries that have some kind of instability in them, inside them, and this is something that should be monitored on a regular basis by India, and I believe this is being done, so that these instabilities and chaos do not affect the overall strategy of India, that the plan that India has in its aim to become a superpower country. Other challenges that I see, internal challenges, not coming from neighbors or other countries, is how to uplift the society that is still, in some parts of the country, is, let us be straightforward, is really poor, and poverty levels are really high in some regions. And when we say upliftment, for example, I could tell you 110%. I really have no idea what can be done in order to uplift these people as fast as possible. It is a lengthy process, I believe, and it involves two things, according to me, which is to begin with, education and healthcare. If we can provide these two things to the downtrodden in India, then there is some chance that not all, but some of these people could take part and in the overall, development of the country. And in order to do this, there needs to be not just proper programs, but their effective execution, which is always an issue in any diverse and hugely populated, and it's, as people say right now, it's more populous than China. In such a populous country, execution of these programs is very tough. For example, recently what I saw in India, it was kind of shocking to me, surprising maybe, because I was born and raised in Moscow, Russia, which is still it is a developed city, and you don't see such things over here. There was this monsoon, wave of monsoons that swept away the homes of people living near the banks of the river Yamuna. And I saw these people living under bridges. My business partners, they were residing in Holiday Inn. And just near that 5-star hotel, 4-star hotel, whatever that is, there was a bridge. And under that bridge, there were people. They were living there with their buffaloes, goats, and children, and everything else. All of their their homes. They shifted their homes to those, to the roads under the bridges. They were living there, and looking at that, and obviously there were many volunteers helping them. But looking at that, I understood that even simple weather turbulences can affect a huge portion of India's population. And upliftment of this population, according to me, is one of the biggest internal challenges, how to do that. Other internal challenge, is, I'll be very specific this time, it is roads. It's the infrastructure that connects the growing urban hubs, which are Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. And Indian roads have become much better than what I remember when I was small. These times when I travel to India, some of the roads are like in any other developed country. It's amazing to see how much has been already done. But for us to be economically strong and to engage in international trade more efficiently, we have to focus on building transport infrastructure. And this is not even a challenge. If business is good, if money is flowing, foreign direct investment is coming, these things can be done. Once again, it boils down to proper execution, I believe. I also see, I want to end actually this video now because it has taken me 22 minutes already. India has to be very, how do you say, very cautious in its policies related to engagement in certain alliances. This is what I would say. At the moment, India is, if you look at it, it is continuing its Cold War period non-alignment policy. You can see this. India has always had this idea that it's not necessary to be in a particular alliance, a formal alliance, right? India wants to work with the world and for the world, and this is the right policy, and India is continuing that. The only moment which I believe is we have to take care of is the geopolitical shifts, the geopolitical tectonic plates, let's call them. The way and how fast they're moving is something to be taken care of, and according to that, I have complete trust in, if India is, many people, even foreigners, even Russians have told me this many times, if there is something in India that is, actually, according to me, one of its very strong points, then it is the foreign affairs of India. The way India is handling these turbulences in geopolitics and the way it is engaging with different alliances, you can call India is looking like to the world. It is looking like this sort of a wise man who has seen it all, been everywhere, and understands the world to the perspective of an old civilization, and understands that all these alliances are temporary, and it is important to engage with everyone in a productive way, efficient way, and the result should be mutual benefit, mutual progress for the world. This is, I think, India's foreign affairs idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when I'm looking at what I'm seeing right now, when I'm reading the news, when I'm looking at how India is projecting itself globally, this is, I believe, the general line policy of India in foreign affairs, which is a good thing. So I would end this video today, and I'm sorry it took a long break, but it's really tough to balance work, family, and YouTube. YouTube is a job in itself, and it involves a lot of time to just, even think of a subject to speak on, first of all. But with my focus on, international relations at the moment, I think this YouTube channel will sort of move from everything about everything to have more focus on international relations, geopolitics, and economic relations between countries. It's basically international relations, all of it. And let's see where this ship takes us. And let's basically make this channel a family of people who are for the world and with the world, and they would like to see, you know, their countries further their own interests, but in a framework where everyone can do something good for others, and in a framework where the world, according to me, becomes a multipolar world where no one country dictates other countries how they should be dealing with their internal problems. And a multipolar world is, I believe, a better option. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and let's see when I publish the next video, but I believe it will be next Sunday. So take care, everyone, and see you next time.